Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. I'm the president of Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. You can find a link to my work over at emailrevealer.com. You can also go there and get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Okay, now we have a returning guest. We just had him on last week, but I can never get enough of Doug Caddy. I love him, okay? He just came out with a great new book, Being There, witness to history, and that's a fact. Doug Caddy has been a witness to history. He's been behind the scenes of a lot of stuff. We talked last week about the JFK assassination and about some Watergate stuff with Robert Merritt and some stuff that really blew me away. So we didn't get to the rest of the stuff in the book, so he's gracious enough to come back. So, Doug Caddy, are you there?
Yes, I am, Ed, and thank you for inviting me to be on your program.
No, thank you so much. I really enjoy it when you come here. But last time, I neglected to say, to give your resume and tell the audience, who is Doug Caddy?
Okay, who am I, in other words?
Yeah, tell us about yourself, yeah.
Okay, basically, my book, Being There, Eyewitness to History, is my autobiography, which traces my early years right up to the present time. And I start off with showing that I got involved in politics at an early age in high school. I was at LC Fortier High School in New Orleans, and at that time, Senator McCarthy was up for being censured, and I went over to a rally in favor of him in Audubon Park, and this is 1954. And the organizers of that park asked that I set up a card table in front of St. Louis Cathedral in the French Quarter and collect signatures on a petition in favor of Joe McCarthy against the censure of him. As a result, I started working with Guy Bannister, who was at that time former FBI agent, assistant chief of police in New Orleans, and later he became the handler of Lee Harvey Oswald in the months before the assassination when Oswald was in New Orleans. But this was 1954 and 55, and at that time, Lee Harvey Oswald was going into high school in New Orleans. I was going to high school in New Orleans, a different high school in New Orleans, and Guy Bannister had his office within walking distance there of all three of us. And we did not know that 8 years later, our lives would be entirely changed. As I mentioned, Lee Harvey Oswald would become the alleged assassin of JFK in Dallas, and as I mentioned, Guy Bannister would be alleged to be his handler in New Orleans before that occurred, and I later became the attorney for E. Howard Hunt, who was more than a bench warmer. In his deathbed confession, he calls himself a bench warmer. Mm. But more than that, he was actually on the grassy knoll with Frank Sturgis at the time of the assassination of JFK. And I traced in my book through the rise of the conservative movement, in which I was very active in the 50s and 60s, and into Watergate, and then in the JFK assassination, because no one knew in Watergate, though it was one of the most controversial investigations that ever occurred in Washington, the Senate Watergate Committee and the special prosecutor, nobody knew at that time, it was never revealed, that the burglars that went into Watergate were the same team, that one of the three teams that went into Dallas to assassinate JFK. And it was the same people, but that never came out. So while JFK assassination took place before Watergate by about 9 years or so, in my book I reverse it because nobody found out until subsequently to Watergate of the role of the JFK assassination.
Well, let me ask a quick question to interrupt you there. At the time when you were representing Hunt and the other Watergate burglars, did you at that time have any suspicions that they were involved in Watergate in JFK?
No, I did not. I do know. I will say this: that whenever I had a conversation with Howard Hunt, invariably, and I had hundreds of conversations with him, it would always come back to the Bay of Pigs. The Bay of Pigs, and he was adamant in his criticism of John Kennedy and how Kennedy had handled the Bay of Pigs in calling off the invasion, essentially, while it was underway. Basically, so many people were lost. But he never alluded to the assassination at all in those conversations.
And what about your friendship with Bannister? Did you ever come to suspect that he would be involved in something like that?
No. Bannister was kind of a mysterious character even in those days in New Orleans. He and I appeared at a rally on behalf of it was called a Free Enterprise rally there in New Orleans in 1959. We shared the stage with Medford Evans, and it was Guy Bannister and myself talking about free enterprise as opposed to communism, because there was a international conference of youth being held in Vienna, and we were putting on a conference there in New Orleans in opposition to what was going on in Vienna, because we felt it was too much controlled by the Soviets. But Guy Bannister, he was a very colorful person, but you could tell that he carried with him a great deal of secrets, and as I understand it, when he died, Lieutenant Courtney, who was one of his close friends, called, and his wife was in the midst of burning all of his files in the fireplace. He wanted his files destroyed, or most of them destroyed. But after my next venture, so to speak, in history was Koreagate, which followed upon the heels of Watergate, and that's where almost 100 members of Congress were accused of accepting money from the Korean government. They didn't know at the time it was coming from the Korean CIA, to Tongson Park, who was my roommate in college at Georgetown in the 50s. And that's how I got involved in it, because of my close friendship with Tongson Park. I didn't actually know anything about the money being passed to these members of Congress, but the issue before in Koreagate and why money was being passed to members of Congress was the South Korean government was afraid that the American troops were going to be withdrawn by Nixon from South Korea. And this was in 1976. And isn't it ironic, right, 75, 76, isn't it ironic that even today that is still a crucial issue, whether our troops, we have about 30,000 troops there in South Korea, whether they're going to be withdrawn or not. So all the time that has elapsed, it's still a crucial issue.
Yeah, perhaps Trump just floated that trial balloon to get those faucets opened up again with that flow of Korean money flowing back into the United States.
It could be.
He knows where to make a buck, that's for sure.
Anything is possible these days. Yeah. Everything is so Byzantine, right?
And then I tell you, your politics have changed drastically over the years, though, haven't they?
Yes, I went from really from being one of the founders of the modern conservative movement. I organized, while I was in college, the National Student Committee for the Loyalty Oath in 1958, which later became, we then organized Youth for Goldwater for Vice President in 59, and in 1960 we organized Young Americans for Freedom. And it was a rally in March of 1961 at Manhattan Center in New York City that inaugurated the mass modern conservative movement. We had 3,000 people on the inside in that auditorium and 6,000 people on the outside wanted to get inside. And the New York Times carried it on the front page the next day. And that was the beginning of the modern conservative movement. There was no mass conservative movement. There was no conservative organizations basically in those days. And but I was a conservative, but really as a result of Watergate and I would say my education at Georgetown, I was in the School of Foreign Service there to be trained as a diplomat. And between that and my eyes being open to Watergate, all the things that went on there, I evolved, and today I'm a card-carrying member of the ACLU and quite proud of doing so.
I believe you supported Bernie in the last primary?
I did support Bernie, yes, I did.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah. Okay, and what was your role then in Koreagate? What did you contribute to that?
Well, I really didn't know anything about the payoffs. I was actually in the midst of going to law school in New York City, evening law school. In the daytime, I worked in Governor Rockefeller's office for the lieutenant governor, who was a conservative, Malcolm Wilson. And so this all took place in Washington. And so what happened was the Washington Post reporter decided to feature me in a major article on the front page of the Washington Post, being somehow involved in it. And as a result of that, I was subpoenaed to appear before the House committee that was a select committee that was investigating Koreagate, because there were so many members of the House that were involved in accepting this money. And so I went down there, and they asked if I had ever introduced a member of Congress to Tongson Park, and I couldn't remember of anybody that I had done so. But then they said, what about Martin McNady? But Martin McNady at the time was a former chairman, national chairman of the American Legion, national commander of the American Legion. And I did introduce him to Tongson Park, but that was way before he was elected to Congress. And I explained that to the staff, investigative staff, and they all left the room, and there was this big file on the table there. It said, file on Douglas Caddy. Okay, I knew it was a false file because I wasn't involved in it. They wanted to see if I would reach over and just see what was in that file. But I just sat there, and about 5 minutes later, they all came back in, and the leader said, "Well, Mr. Caddy, you're going to be our lead witness at our public hearing, so going to be televised nationally on Koreagate." And I was shocked because I really didn't know anything about it. What I'm going to say, just as in water, the whole case was focused on me, and it was breaking working the equipment. So once it was done when water or hands no waves was real, and wasn't again it focused on me. I'm an innocent fish. To one big fish to escape, and that's what I'm going to tell the people if I testify. As I said, this would be a rigged investigation. Well, they all looked shocked, and they said, "Well, Mr. Caddy, you were excused." And I never heard anything more from that committee. That was the end of that. I called their bluff. And they only found one member of Congress guilty who had to go to. I saw him interviewed on TV at the time, and he said, I'm the fall guy. There had to be at least one fall guy in this whole investigation, make it look like it was a properly conducted investigation. I'm the fall guy. Congressman Hanna of Republican of California. And about 10 members of Congress resigned, did not run for re-election. But the real big fish was Tip O'Neill, who had actually helped Townsend Park in business in doing business operations that they were involved in. But never got to Tip O'Neill. The investigation was off, so it never got to the higher ups.
But you were aware that Tip O'Neill had gotten some money?
Yes, Tip O'Neill was deeply involved in it all, and
okay.
It's kind of ironic because there was a major investigation, and the Senate Intelligence it was the Senate Intelligence Committee that had put out a report on Koreagate. This is in 1976. I quote from it in my autobiography. But here we have, at this time, we have through the NRA, these allegations coming out that the Russian money went into the NRA, which was distributed to Republican candidates for the House and the Senate in the 2016 election. So it's just like it was with Koreagate. It was foreign money coming into this country, but it's in this case it was a disguise through the NRA, National Rifle Association. And as you know, last week the Justice Department, the Treasury Department issued a regulation very quickly,
right,
saying that the donors and the financial records of the NRA do not have to disclose publicly anymore. So the cover-up is underway as to foreign money coming into our country from Russia and going right into the hands of politicians for their re-election.
And if you notice, too, that's not being reported by either side. That's not being reported by the Democrats or the MSNBC or Fox News, that new regulation that they passed.
Yes, it's a major change, and it was done very, very hurriedly. Actually, it was done after they arrested that young woman.
Right.
I would say young woman. I guess she's about 35 years old, who's been alleged to be a spy, and she was very active in the NRA, and apparently it was a conduit for much of the money from Russia into the NRA. And the judge ruled that she's being held without bail. She's locked up. She hasn't been released, and the Russians have demanded that she be released, but they're not going to release her because she has so much incredible information, which our prosecutors of our country want before, and she's going to go to trial. And so we'll learn a great deal about how foreign money came into the election, into the 2016 election, not only for president, but for the House and Senate races, as a result of the trial of this young woman.
Yeah, it seems like the Russians had a lot more influence than we even first believed.
The Russians' intelligence, I think, is in many ways superior to ours. They think in the long-term, decades ahead. And I was just reading a report by a Russian defector of about 20 years ago in which he outlined exactly how what their plan, which they said started 80 years ago against the United States. And they painstakingly have pursued that plan to really to bring our country down, to destroy our democracy. And I think they're on their way to doing it unless something happens.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like we're taking any steps to prevent. But it also seems like so many of these congressmen or have their hand out as well. Like Rohenbacher seems like to be mixed up in everything.
Yes, he does. That's that congressman from Orange County there.
Yeah.
And he definitely is, and he's been linked to this young woman from Russia again.
Okay.
And so it's going to be quite interesting. I think that's one of the most interesting cases that has come out in the investigation of Trump and Russia is this young woman who's been arrested and she's being held without bail.
Yeah, because she had all these boxes packed up. She was ready to skip town there and head back to Moscow, I guess, right? So,
yeah.
This might be a good time to take a commercial break. And when we get back, because Doug Caddy, I was reading your book here about the part about Trump and Russia. And you knew all these guys. You knew Stone and Manafort and all these characters in your 20s, I guess, right?
Yes, I knew them right in the wake of Watergate.
Okay.
Right when Watergate was the special prosecutor and the Senate Watergate Committee was holding their hearings, I knew all those individuals.
Okay, then let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back with Doug Caddy. The book is called Being There, Eyewitness to History. And I got to tell you something. If there's ever a book, I get so many books, come to me. And if there's ever a book I would love to have autographed by the author, it's this one, Doug. I got to tell you, I'm really just fascinated with your life. And I encourage people, too, to go back and find the first couple of interviews I did with Doug Caddy. I believe one night we did 3 hours. Okay, we were both kind of shocked the last time we talked. But I believe one night we did a 3-hour interview 4 years ago. So we'll be right back with more of Doug Caddy. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Doug Caddy, and I'm talking about his book, Being There, Eyewitness to History. So, Doug, one of the last chapters, or maybe the last chapter in the book, describes how you became involved with Mueller and Comey and Trump and Russiagate. What can you tell us about that?
Well, for several years, and actually a number of years, I had known several of the leaders of the LaRouche organization.
Right.
Lyndon LaRouche, I went to one meeting at which he spoke, and he struck me as really a zealot and someone you couldn't really reason with. He had his own views, and he didn't entertain anybody to challenge them. But he had 3 or 4 fellows underneath him who were very reasonable, and they were extremely bright and intelligent, and I always found the information that they provided to be really very valuable, and it wasn't slanted in any way. And one of them was Harley Schlanger, and so I received a phone call from Harley Schlanger in January of 2016, and he said that he would very much appreciate if I could introduce him to Roger Stone. He knew that I knew Roger Stone. Roger Stone and Donald Trump studied politics and how to do things under Roy Cohn. And Roy Cohn taught them how to all the unsavory things that they have engaged in the practice of politics, so Roger Stone came from that background. And I knew him. I knew Roger Stone because in the early 1970s, the National Conservative Political Action Committee was formed. It was one of the first political PACs where people contributed money in small amounts and supported conservative candidates. And I was legal counsel. Terry Dolan was the executive director, but his close friend was Roger Stone. So Paul Manafort was also involved, but to a lesser degree. So I knew Roger in that capacity, and also he wrote a book about the Kennedy assassination and about Nixon. And, so they were actually almost national bestsellers. They were on the New York Times bestseller list 2 or 3 years ago. And before he wrote that, he contacted me and asked me to provide any material, which I did, and credited me in that book, in his books. But so Harley Schlanger asked me to introduce him to Roger Stone. This was in January of 2016, and the election was going to be in November, we know. And so I did. I had a severe attack of allergies at that time, so I could not attend the meeting they had in Austin, Texas. But out of that became a close relationship between Harley Schlanger and the LaRouche organization and Roger Stone.
Well, let me stop you for a second.
The thing about this,
wait, Doug,
the interesting thing.
The meeting took place in Austin, Texas, so each of them flew to Austin, Texas for the purpose of this meeting?
Roger Stone was signing autographs at a book event there in Austin. And Harley Schlanger actually was stationed here in Houston, where I am at the present time.
Okay.
And so it was a convenient place for the two of them to get together.
Okay.
But what's interesting, and it did not come out until later, that Harley Schlanger and others of the LaRouche organization attended that famous dinner in December of 2015 in celebrating the 25th anniversary or the 20th, some anniversary of Russia Today, the radio and television program that comes out of Russia.
Right.
That's where Putin was there, and General Flynn was sitting next to Putin, and so the LaRouche organization was very active, a very active supporter of Russia, always has been, and so they had a delegation present at that dinner. And what I read into this later on, and I asked that it be investigated, was whether Harley's assignment came out of that meeting there. They said get as close as you can to the people around Donald Trump, and so I did introduce them to. They did meet as a result of my introduction, and they had TV, radio interviews on the LaRouche radio station, radio programs, and so forth, and I had an email correspondence with both of them, and there is a section of the law called misprision of a felony, whereby if you have knowledge of the possibility of a felony having been committed or actually being committed, you as a citizen have an obligation to report this to the authorities, and if you don't, you subject yourself to severe penalties, including being prosecuted. So being an attorney, I'm admitted to the District of Columbia Bar and the Texas Bar. I felt an obligation to report what I had set up at the request of Harley Schlanger of the LaRouche organization as a result of this dinner in Moscow, was Roger Stone, who became the first campaign manager for Donald Trump when he announced for president. And in my letter to FBI Director Comey, and later after he was fired, I wrote Special Counsel Mueller. I said, I'm not in a position to investigate this matter. I'm just providing you these emails and this correspondence and my knowledge. It's all up to you to pursue it from here, from this point on. And I feel sure it has been explored. At one time, Lyndon LaRouche was, I think unfairly, but he was sent to prison as a result of the fundraising activities of the LaRouche organization. I think he was singled out by George H.W. Bush as president to be penalized, and the prosecutor at that time was actually Mueller, Robert Mueller.
Really?
And so Mueller had a long knowledge of the LaRouche organization. And so if Roger Stone is indicted, we'll wait and see if any of the information I provided to Comey and to Mueller appears in the indictment, and if any of the LaRouche people are witnesses at that investigation, at the trial of Roger Stone.
I don't believe we've heard the name LaRouche brought up before in this investigation of the Russian connection to Trump. Have you heard it in the media brought up before?
No, there's been no connection in the media at all. But I posted online in the on the education forum my attorney's file on the whole matter, and I did mention this little-known statute called misprision of felony, and a number of people have talked about that. As a result, nobody really knew it existed. It never really been cited publicly very much. But as a result of the circulation of my file on the education forum, it has come out. I have seen members of Congress and media talking about it. I know Adam Schiff was asked, and he said, well, if you have an official capacity such as an attorney, you certainly have an obligation to let the authorities know if you think there's been any wrongdoing. You have a legal obligation to do so.
Now, since you've made this letter public in the book and you posted it in the education forum, have you heard from Roger Stone since then?
No, I haven't heard from Roger Stone at all. No, I have not.
Okay. And you describe in the book that you were being followed and harassed by some private investigators?
Well, I was for a while there, but that ceased. Actually, I publicized it on the education forum, and as soon as I publicized it, that activity ceased. But they were very... They were doing things when I was driving. They would cut me off and try to force me off the road and things like that. But that ceased once I made it public, so that was no longer an issue. And
how did you determine that they were private investigators?
Well, I'd gone through this with the Moody Foundation scandal, which is a separate issue, a separate chapter in my book about the Moody Foundation scandal. The Moody Foundation out of Galveston, Texas, is a very rich and powerful foundation, and it had a tremendous scandal. At one time, I was a whistleblower on it, and it went to tax. I talk about the case going to tax court and so forth. But at that time, I was I was followed by private detectives for quite a while, and actually the Houston Chronicle carried articles about this at the time of the harassment that I was undergoing for having blown the whistle on this on the Moody Foundation scandal. So I was somewhat. This was in the 1980s, about 1986 or so. So I recognized what was going on.
Did you ever contact? You assume? I guess you're assuming that it's Stone who put these or maybe LaRouche put them on you.
Oh no, I don't think. No, I think it was the Trump organization.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would make sense too.
They don't want this brought out. They were trying to cut this whole thing off, and they're involved right now. Is my understanding they're involved right now in formulating plans to go after anybody they consider a vociferous opponent of Donald Trump or his policies and so forth. They'll go after them in different ways, maybe using the IRS and agencies and so forth.
It's about time he got up to speed on that kind of thing. He's been in office about a year and a half and hasn't really gotten organized and to go after his enemies as he's attempting to right now. What can you tell us about? There's a story in here about why you think that Roger Stone is a sociopath or a psychopath, you called him, because of an incident when you were walking down the street one time?
Well, yeah, I was called by, I recounted this many years ago to a commentator from Fox News who had called me about Roger Stone. But this is when I was legal counsel of the National Conservative Political Action Committee. And Terry Dolan and Roger Stone and I had lunch there in Roslyn, Virginia, which is right across the Potomac River from Washington. And we were walking down the street afterwards. And across the street was this woman who was bent over completely at the waist, where curvature of the spine. It's people like you see in the Far East who've spent their whole life picking rice and these things from fields. They just have curvature of the spine that way. And it looked like she was probably with her son and daughter, who were young adults. And anyway, Roger Stone started laughing and pointing at her. It was so embarrassing, and laughing and pointing at her. And then he started mimicking her curvature of the spine, walking down the street. And I was, as I told this commentator from James Rosen, who it was from Fox News, I said I was so embarrassed. I ran into a public garage there where cars were parked. I just had to get away. I was so embarrassed. But this is, Roger Stone has many talents, and I recommend his book, the books he has written in recent years on Nixon and on JFK. And he loves publicity. He's a great. He knows how to get publicity, but there is this side of him, just like with Trump, of narcissism and sociopath and borderline psychopath. And it's come back to haunt him now after all these years. He really was a key person who got the 2000 elections in Florida swung in favor of George W. Bush against Al Gore. And in 2004, he worked in Ohio, which was a tipping point in the re-election of George W. Bush. He's always been involved in rigging national elections, and he did so this time around with Trump. But it's a different story this time because Mueller is on the trail. I think Mueller is going to come out. What Mueller is going to come out with will shock the world, completely shock the world.
Yeah, I agree.
Very reserved. But from what I saw in Watergate, which has so many parallels, I predict it will shock the world that what he will come out with.
And do you think how do you think it will end up for Trump with just an impeachment, or do you think he'll have to resign? Maybe perhaps an indictment, a criminal indictment. Is that possible?
I think it's possible. It would have to go maybe ultimately to the Supreme Court. But if the issue of whether after he was indicted and he would challenge the indictment, saying as president, I cannot be indicted, and this would wind its way up to the Supreme Court.
Right.
The Supreme Court is loaded 5-4 now with these people who will do anything to help the Republican Party. They're really part of they really actually think in terms of how can I help the Republican Party in most of their decisions these days. They're very slanted decisions. And but I think the Chief Justice and even those who are zealot Republicans would know that they would destroy the Supreme Court as an institution if they were to say, oh no, after all the evidence that had been presented by Mueller showing that Trump was a traitor, not only a traitor but a criminal, a master criminal for many, many years.
Right.
That say, oh no, because he's president, he cannot be indicted. That would destroy the Supreme Court. The revulsion of the American public would be such that the court would never regain any authority, and it would, and so they would. I think they would have to come down and support the position of Mueller that President Trump can be indicted.
Well, under normal circumstances, I would agree with you, but it just seems like all the norms have just been thrown out the window. You know, with this Trump presidency, like. Meeting with Putin in private for 2 hours just is so irregular.
It's very irregular, and I really think, to be honest, that I think Trump is a traitor. I think he's a Russian asset. I think his ego and it's really a matter of stupidity and also of greed. And I don't rule out that he hasn't given away our most vital secrets to the Russians. He may have even given our code to the football. You know, the football was the fellow that walks around with the president. That's the code that in case we were attacked, the code to activate our retaliation against being attacked with a foreign power with nuclear weapons. And I don't rule out that Trump has given away our most vital secrets to the Russians. I think it's that serious.
The man, he'll steal anything that's not nailed down, you know, so it's not like it would be beyond him. Now, I'm sure you've read the entire Steele dossier, correct?
I read it, but some time ago. Mm-hmm.
Well,
read it, yes. Mm-hmm. That's where it mentioned in the Steele dossier, by the way. It mentions the LaRouche organization. Or LaRouche, it said at this dinner at that dinner with Putin for Russia Today, that famous dinner there in December of 2015, that dossier talks about there being a delegation from the LaRouche organization present at that dinner. Really,
I must have skipped right over that part because it does talk about Jill Stein being there. You know, right. So, what is your estimation of the Steele dossier?
I think thus far it looks like it's been proven to be very accurate.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I think the author of it was right on. Knew what he was doing. He was a very skilled investigator, and I think it's very accurate.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's just amazing now. Like on right-wing talk radio and on Fox News, they can just repeat over and over the dodgy dossier, the discredited dossier, and just repeat it over and over and over again, and a good percentage of the population believes that.
Well, I was on Coast to Coast recently, and George Nurian was discussing this, and I pointed out to him, we've only heard one side, because Mueller never holds press conferences. You know, we've only heard one side, which is his endless propaganda from Trump and Fox News and NRA and so forth. And so when Mueller does come down, he's not only has these indictments. We do have Paul Manafort's trials coming up, one next week and one in September in the District of Columbia. And I expect a number of indictments in August, a number of key indictments in August. And then we'll hear the other side of the story. But it's not only indictments. Mueller is preparing a report. And I think the report will probably be 2,000 or 3,000 pages, to be honest. Very detailed report, and which will go down in history of everything he's... You know, there's no question in my mind, but he has gotten Trump's tax returns going back for many years. And the people on his staff who have the skill in accounting and taxes and so forth have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and so all the financial shenanigans that Trump has been involved in my opinion, he became a Russian asset about 1987 when he went to Russia. That was the first time he went to Russia, and he came back praising how he'd been treated in Russia. He gave these press conferences saying he had such a wonderful trip to Russia, and he announced he was running for president. This was this would be in 1988, so he was converted at that time. I think he's been an asset to the at that time it was the communists. It was still the Soviet Union, but he's been controlled by the Russians since then.
Let me ask you a question. Are you aware of the lawsuit, the Caddy lawsuit against Trump and Jeffrey Epstein?
Somewhat, yeah. Whereby
the 13-year-old girl was
this young girl alleged that Trump forced sexual relations. Maybe you should describe it.
That she was raped at 13 years old by both Epstein and Trump, and Epstein is a convicted sex offender. You know, that's what he did. He did that. He admitted doing it, not to her, but he admitted doing it to 30 girls. Now,
sure.
So you know, there's a lot of other stories out there. Okay, besides that story. Many stories. I was talking to someone the other day, and I heard 2 stories. How come Mueller is not looking into those kind of allegations?
Well, I think he is. Epstein, you know, was an agent of a Mossad.
Right.
And Mossad, he had this island in the Caribbean, and he brought all these people. Prince Andrew came down there. Clinton came. Bill Clinton went down there. All sorts of prominent people.
Sure.
And they got recorded on videotape. They got compromised. And I think Trump is among them. That's why Trump is so pro-Israel, and will do anything to help Israel, because he's been blackmailed by so many parties. But let me just mention this: in the last week, Mueller has indicated that he's going to ask the former prostitute, a woman who was worked with Roger Stone for many years, to testify before the grand jury. Now, this is my guess, okay? This is my guess of what's happening here, okay? Roger Stone was instrumental in bringing down Governor Elliot Spitzer. Remember the governor of New York City?
Sure.
And he was instrumental in exposing this prostitution woman who ran the prostitution ring, set up Spitzer, and it was later sprung upon him that he had engaged in the services of the prostitution ring. And I think what Mueller is going to, and this is my guess, is going to show that Trump paid Roger Stone, or had a relationship with Roger Stone, and I'm just alleging here because I don't know whether this to be true or not, that they set up Spitzer and destroy him. Now, why would they want to destroy Spitzer? Well, one thing, he had the ability to investigate the Trump Foundation and in New York State,
right?
And which is now being is being sued by the state of New York. In addition, the Spitzer family were rivals in the real estate business with Trump, and this was a way to hurt a rival and solidify his own business for Trump, was to knock out Elliot Spitzer. So I'm just, these are allegations. I'm not saying this is the way. I have no idea why I'm this, but it's very suspicious in my mind what's going on.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And it's interesting, too, that Stone just recently did meet with a Russian gangster who wanted $2 million to provide, I guess it was the emails or dirt for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait and find out what Mueller has. I mean, from Roger Stone's viewpoint, I think it was very foolish. He's attacked the prosecutor again and again and again, putting his thumb in Mueller's eye over and over, and this is a very foolish thing to do to a prosecutor who has all that power. And so we'll just have to see what happens. It looks to me like Mueller has Stone as a target.
If I ever had Stone on the show, I would want to ask him about his friendship and his work on the campaigns of Al Sharpton. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know anything about that at all.
Fascinating that he would be Sharpton's campaign manager so many times in so many different, with Sharpton selling out the Democratic Party to split the Democratic vote. I'd love to get Stones on the show someday. I guess. Now, you haven't heard from any of these guys, Manafort, since he's been arrested or anything like that? No.
No, none of them.
Okay.
But this is I identified them this way back in the 1970s as being sociopath, and it was a Stone, Manafort, and it was Black, Manafort, and Stone. That was the firm,
right.
The public relations firm, lobbying firm that they created, and this is the way they acted in those days. You know, they could get away with it in those days because under Reagan, anybody who was close to Reagan benefited very much. But now it's come back to haunt both Manafort and Stone.
Yeah, the Black, Manafort, and Stone firm was known as the dictators, the terrorists, no, the torturers PR firm, because they would represent all these dictators who were famous for torturing their own citizens.
Right.
Yeah.
But Roger Stone, you know, he's obviously a very talented political operative. It's just at this time, it looks to me like, I mean, he's a charming in person. He's a very charming person. It looks to me like he just went too far and got caught this time. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Is there anything else about the Trump-Russia situation you'd like to share with us before we move on to another topic?
Do I have anything else about? Is that what you're asking? Do I have anything else?
Anything else to share?
Trump or Russia?
Yeah.
No, I do not.
Okay. Then what would you like to cover now? When you were the threat to your life in this Moody situation, you want to talk about that, or?
Well, what happened was in 1979 I moved from Washington D.C. I had, in the wake of Watergate, which went on from 72 to about 76. I actually had dinner with Howard Hunt in 1975, just as he was getting ready to go to prison to serve those 3.5 years. And so in 1979, I decided that, well, Washington was not for me anymore. I'd seen too much and been too soured by what I saw. So I came to Texas. My parents lived in Texas, and so I went to work in the Governor Clement's administration under the Secretary of State George Strait, and I was essentially director of elections for the state of Texas. There are 254 counties, and what I did in 1980 was almost and teach officials how to administer the elections, because at that time there were 6 different types of voting machines that were being used. But I got a call from Howard Phillips of the Conservative Caucus out of Washington. He was one of the founders of Young Americans for Freedom, and he said that the Moody Foundation wanted to give a grant, but it had begun given to a Texas corporation, nonprofit corporation, and would I form one, which I did, Texas Policy Institute, and they got a grant from the Moody Foundation to put on a conference on Star Wars. Before Reagan announced Star Wars, we had a conference here in Galveston on Star Wars. But as a result of that, Robert Sherman Moody, who's one of the 3 trustees of the Moody Foundation, got a call from his former lobbyist, Jimmy Day, who was in prison in Midland, Texas, Big Spring Prison. And he went to prison not for anything he'd done for Moody, but he had gone to Washington after he left Moody's employment, and he stole stationery from the White House when he was visited at the White House there. They wrote letters on the White House stationery to praise James, the praise the big skilled lobby. But the point is, he simply saw this next to me. He's here in prison. He wants to speak to Sherman Moody. And Billy Saul-Estes was the bagman and silent business partner of Lyndon Johnson from the very beginning, all the way up to when Johnson was start of his political career in 1948, when he rigged that election and got elected U.S. Senator on up to the presidency. And so he said he wanted to tell what he knew. But Lyndon Johnson had died in 1973, and this call came in 1983. So I went up and visited Billy Saul Estes in prison and suggested to him that he write a book. And he said he would think about it. When he got released, he called up Sherman Moody again, the trustee, and said he did want to write a book. He had given the idea to his daughter, Pam Estes. She wrote a book called Billy Saul Estes, King of the Wheeler Dealers, which was widely reviewed and really very well written. And it was about what happened to the family while he was in prison. He had 2 prison terms. Billy Saul Estes had 2 prison terms. But it wasn't about anything that he knew. It was all about what the family went through while he was in prison. So he wanted to tell his story. And so I went up and visited with him, and the Moody Foundation agreed to a grant that would be going through the Abilene Christian University And then two things happened. Billy Solis has testified before the Robertson County Grand Jury here in Texas about a murder of the Department of Agriculture employee who had stumbled upon and put together the criminal activities involving Billy Solis and millions of dollars had gone astray. And he was killed, and at the time in 1961, the investigation that really was suicide. But he was a rifle shoot himself at rifle 5 times for it to be a suicide, but that's the real coroner said at the time. 1984, Solis testified before this grand jury as to what really happened, and they changed it from a suicide to homicide. And then Billy Solis said, well, I need to have immunity from federal immunity if I'm going to tell what I know. And so I was working with Edward Miller, a former assistant director of the FBI, on putting together a foundation, Moody Foundation seminar on terrorism. And he arranged for the two of us, this is Edward Miller and myself, to visit the Attorney General, Stephen Trott, for the criminal division in the Justice Department, and we brought all this information from press clippings and so forth, what had happened before the Robertson County Grand Jury, and Billy Solis' desire to tell what he knew. And as a result, the Assistant Attorney General asked the FBI to look into it and see if it would be justified pursuing this. They looked into their files and said they would definitely be so. And so the 3 FBI agents flew down to Abilene, Texas, with Billy Solis, and I flew down separately, and I was in Abilene. But when Billy Solis and his daughter came into the hotel, it was an atrium hotel on the 12th floor were the 3 agents looking down at us at that initial meeting. Billy Solis said, I'm not going to talk about anything. I'm not going to say anything. I'm withdrawing my cooperation entirely. And I tried to reason with them, but meanwhile, before then, we had written a letter of profit what information he would provide to the Justice Department in reason for being immunity. And this is actually very well known. Where there are people on the there were actually about 17 murders, ultimately about 17 murders that took place. Lyndon Johnson and Carter, his assistant in the White House era, and Mac Wallace, who was the stone killer that was on Lyndon Johnson's payroll in the Department of Agriculture, and Billy Solis, they decided who had to go and how they had to go. And so there was a series of murders. And one of the people killed was Lyndon Johnson's sister.
Right.
And I go into this in the book and describe how that happened, and I show that her birth certificate. She was poisoned on Christmas Eve in 1961. A piece of cake was given to her at that dinner there with the Johnsons, and the only other there was John Connolly and his wife. They did not know what was going on. And she died on Christmas Day, and she was buried the day after Christmas, and she's buried at the family cemetery right there on Lyndon Johnson's ranch. And so it was done very, very quickly. But she was talking too much. She had for many years she was a drug user, she was alcoholic, and she was telling too many of Lyndon Johnson's secrets. And Billy Solis recounts in his autobiography how the decision was made that she had to be killed. And so that's how she was killed. She was poisoned, and this was done when Lyndon Johnson was vice president in 1961. Nothing was going to stop him from becoming president. He was not going to let his sister, if it meant her death, so be it. Nothing was going to stop him from becoming president.
Doug, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. You're a fascinating font of information and insight into everything you discuss. What do you, in a minute, what do you want to leave us with?
Well, as I say in my book, my life has just been, I've been like a piece on a chessboard. These things have happened to me starting really before I was born. I describe what happened before I was born, and 3 months before I was born. And so people ask what my plans are now, and I always say that I'm just going to wait and see what move is made on the chessboard, because I really don't have any control. These things these events just happen, just like I described how Harley Slanger called me out of the blue and wanted to be introduced to Roger Stone.
Right.
And so I'll just have to wait and see what happens on the chessboard.
And how old are you, Doug?
I'm 80 years old, so I may be too old, but I still have
plenty of time.
My energy and vitality, so we'll see what happens.
Plenty of time to get in more trouble there, Doug. Listen, thank you so much, okay?
Thank you for having me on your program.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Good night. Okay, they had Doug Caddy. Once again, the book is called Being There, Eyewitness to History. I got to tell you, you got to get this book, okay? It's a short book, too. It's not a big, long book. But the last 10 pages are all kinds of documents and pictures and photographs and news articles and stuff like that. Fascinating character, Doug Caddy here. And by the way, too, back the first time I interviewed him, about 3 years ago, it's a 3-hour interview. No one had interviewed him before. I found this guy. Okay, so now he's all over the place. He's on coast to coast. Okay. All right, but I had him first. All right. Thank you so much. If you enjoy the show, don't forget our members section at OppermanReport.com and become a member. Help support the show. We haven't had a lot of memberships lately. I got to tell you that. I got some new content we're putting up there this weekend. I got a lot going on. Hey, don't forget to, it'll be too late by the time you hear this. And now a word from our sponsors. EmailRevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to EmailRevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online. Email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. EmailRevealer.com. Digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages. Create a report that you can use in court. EmailRevealer.com. 800-572-9762. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents, They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at KMDlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to KMDlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.